Do you want to learn the secrets of trading? The truth is, too many investors know the struggles of trading. Now let's find out what worked and what didn't with their personality, as these successful investors share their trading journey with us.
Hello and welcome to this week's version of A Trader's Journey. I am your host, Ryan Faluna, and I am here with Max from Madaz Money. How you doing today, Max?
Hey, Ryan. How's it going? Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure having you here. I cannot wait to hear about your journey. Been following you for a long time, so I am equally as excited as our viewers today. So let's just get right into it.
Awesome.
What was your first trade and how did you get started in trading?
Woo. So I started back in March of 2011. So we're almost going on a decade now in the game. So it's a long time. But my first trade was actually, I opened up an E-Trade account with $6,000, and I got started because my coworker showed up with a really nice car, and I was like, man, I want to know where to get that money to get that car. So I went in on that. So I found out that he bought a bunch of BP stock, when they had that oil spill, and I made like $80,000 or something like that over the course of a summer. And he told me to open an E-Trade account. I put $6,000 in there, and the first stock I bought was a Chinese e-commerce stock called Dang. That was when Chinese stocks were kind of hot, and I put some money into that. It wasn't a big win by any stretch of the imagination, but it was actually a profitable trade. So, good to start off on the right foot. It was not a day trade or anything like that. It was actually like a kind of like a buy and hold, I guess a swing trade of sorts. But just get my feet wet with that E-Trade account, and just things just kept on trucking along after that. One thing led to another, and just kept buying more and more stocks, got hooked. And now here I am today talking to you about it. So
that's how it happens, my man. And it's funny too, because when I got started, it was a Rolex that I was like, man, I want to be able to afford at least one Rolex over the course of my life. I better check this trading thing out here and see how it goes. So very, very similar in that regard. So you had mentioned, a swing trade. What kind of trading do you do predominantly? Is it day trading, swing trading? Do you do investing? Is it a combination of them?
So I mainly just day trade because I'm a pretty impatient person. I'm kind of like the guy that wants his money like right now, this very minute. And I also like my sleep at night. So every time I kind of hold stuff overnight, I've tried it before. I've tried swing trading before. Every time I hold stuff overnight, I just get really anxious and I start losing sleep. And yeah, I hate that feeling. When you wake up in the morning and then your like positions down like 30-40% or something like that. I just hate that feeling. So for that reason, I just stick to day trading because I feel like I got a lot more control over my positions and what happens with my trades. So yeah, I mainly stick to day trading, same day in and out. um, but I've dabbled in everything. I mean, I have a long-term account for my retirement and stuff like that, and I think a lot of people do as well. And that's more like a set it and forget it kind of thing. But my main thing is day trading.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I definitely do the same thing. I mean, I also have an account for long-term holds. And I think that's a really important point that you just touched on, because identifying how your personality affects your trading and then tailoring your trading to that, that's definitely a key to success. And that's pretty common amongst traders. So good stuff. When do you think you made that shift to become a profitable trader?
Well, trading is one of those things where there's no fixed timeline, right? And there's no like, okay, you put in 6 months of time, a year, 2 years or whatever, and then you all of a sudden magically become a profitable trader. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. I get asked this question a lot. How long does it take to become profitable? I mean, I can only speak for myself. For me, it personally took me about a year to become profitable, and it took me 3 years to comfortably quit my job and go trading full time. For some people it might be less, some people might be more, some people might not even get there. So it's really tough to answer that question from a general standpoint. But for me personally, it took me about a year to kind of just get the gist of trading in general, like all the quirks of trading. It takes like a good solid year for me to like recognize all the patterns and start to develop some sort of like ability to recognize these patterns on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I had a similar experience as well. Again, it took me a couple of years to really get consistent in my trading. So can you, over the course of that journey, can you recall your biggest struggle in trading or your biggest hurdle that you had to get over?
Yeah. So one of the biggest hurdles that I had was, it's inevitable that we all eventually take a loss here and there, right? So one of my biggest hurdles would be if I were to take, like, say, a sizable loss, and then afterwards, our human nature is like we want to make the money back as soon as possible, right? Um, Obviously, that's a really bad can of worms that you're opening there that will probably make things a lot more worse than they were when you initially took that loss. But the thing that really was difficult for me was, not only taking the loss, but usually after taking the loss, and say, like, we all know that notoriously the markets are slower during the summer, right? So there was a time where I took a loss toward the tail end of May, and then we all know the expression "sell in May and go away," and usually that starts the slow period of the market during the summer. So I took a big loss in May, and then June, July, and August, the markets were so slow and so devoid of opportunity that I pretty much was not able to, you know, chip away at that loss, any significant part of that loss. So I was pretty much stuck, kind of like in this emotional, like, vicious cycle, where I'm kind of like thinking about that loss every day for all those months until the market picked up again in September. So that was a big struggle for me. So taking a big loss and then not having the opportunity to, make it back, and that it's like I said, it causes that emotional distress, right? That extra emotional distress. You're coming into the trading day, you're like, ah, shoot, I still got this big loss looming over my head. And yeah, it's a tough battle, man. It's a tough mental battle. It's something that you can't really, like, describe until you've experienced it yourself. But yeah, it took me a good year or two to really get over that that emotional issue of just dealing with a big loss, and not only that, but not having the opportunity to make it back in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I actually had a buddy who had been trading for years tell me that I needed to learn how to lose before I learned how to win. And I didn't
Yeah.
really know what that meant at the time. And then sure enough, you find out for yourself. And I think that's a really good point. You definitely have to kind of like learn that lesson yourself. So if you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself on day one?
So one thing that I really wish I did was paper trade. Okay, so people always ask me this all the time, and I almost feel ashamed for giving this answer. Is I actually dove in with real money right away, and I don't recommend that. Anyone that's new at trading that comes in and asks me, like, what do I do to start, I always say you need to learn to paper trade first, because not only do you, like, understand the mechanics of trading and stuff like that, like, okay, you understand how to click the buy button, you understand how to click the sell button, you understand the different order types and all the routes and all that stuff, but you actually learn how to utilize the platform, right? I made so many mistakes where, like, I clicked the wrong button, or like I didn't know where a certain indicator or certain tool was that I needed, and that's quite costly when you're playing with real money, right? So paper trading is essential in so many ways. I mean, obviously, people say that, like, paper trading is not the same because, emotions aren't involved because you're not trading with real money, which is true. I agree with that. But you still need to learn how to execute the trades properly, right? You need to learn how to use the platform. You need to learn how things work. And, without paper trading, you're going to start fumbling stuff when you're in the hot seat, right? So that was something that I should have done. I probably would have saved myself a couple bucks if I did that. So
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I do the same thing, or I tell people the same thing. Definitely paper trade. This job is hard, so don't make it any harder. Try
oh
to
yeah.
use anything that you can in your favor. So okay, so I've got a burning question here. How does your family and friends feel about you day trading, and was it always this way?
That is a very, very good question. It's funny. I've done a handful of interviews and nobody's asked me that question. So I think I would have to take the cake as the best question I've been asked so far. So let me tell you something. My own mother still thinks that I gamble for a living. So I think that might that might kind of answer your question right there in a nutshell. But overall, I feel like, I feel like trading, we all know it's a very difficult thing to do, right? There's statistics out there, 95% of traders fail. So if you're amongst the 5-10% that have actually made it, and not only that, but made it to the point where you couldn't make it a living, I mean, that's something that's pretty commendable, right? But when it comes to like somebody who doesn't understand trading, and they just think that it's gambling, for example, like, yeah, my mom keeps telling me like, go get a job, right? I graduated as an engineer. I still have my engineering degree. I'm still actually licensed in the state of California to practice engineering. My mom keeps telling me to go back and get a respectable job all the time. So I mean, I don't hear the end of it at the dinner table. Um, as for the rest of my family, it's the same way, right? It's they just, I guess they just feel like, I don't know, trading is just not a real job. I don't know. And that's their perspective on it, because I'm just at home, kind of like just sitting around in my pajamas, clicking buttons. Like, what are you doing with your life? But I mean, like I said, in the end, I'm pretty content with where I am. I mean, I took my mom to Paris last year. I think she didn't complain about that. So
Nice. That'll score some points with the man upstairs too. Nice work there. So do you have a favorite strategy that you employ regularly?
I do. So a couple of strategies that I'm known for is the washout long and the panic pop short. So the washout long is essentially just my terminology for buying the dip, right? But it's basically just buying a really sharp drop to like a support area. So if the stock has made a pretty big sizable red candle down to an obvious support area where I'd be comfortable buying, usually there's like an immediate bounce for me to take advantage of. So that's a washout long. Panic pop short is just the opposite of that, like a big sharp spike in the stock, a very sudden spike in the stock, like a large green candle that pops straight to like a obvious area of resistance, then I would probably take a short, and it usually results in a very, very nice reversal that works immediately in my favor. So those are two strategies that I like to use, and every single other strategy that I employ revolves around the washout long or the panic pop short. So, if I'm like trend trading or something like that, I'm essentially just doing multiple washout longs as long as the stock's in the right trend, um, upward. The same thing as a panic pop shorts in a downtrend. I'm just basically just shorting the pops in the downtrend and stuff like that. So washout longs, panic pop shorts, buying the dip, selling the rip, essentially, shorting the pops, covering the drops. That's pretty much the gist of what I do every single day.
Okay, that's a pretty good strategy, if I do say so myself. So the next question here kind of dovetails with that. Are you still pushing the limits of your trading skills? Are you sizing up? Are you trying new things, or are you just comfortable with your system?
So I always believe that we never stop learning until the day we're 6 feet under. So I'm a big proponent of that. So I'm always for pushing my boundaries and my limits to grow. Right. I mean, there's just too much you can do with trading. That's the beauty of it. There's just lots of things you can do in terms of expanding to horizon. So I am right now, we all know, given the extraordinary current market conditions recently, right, with everyone being at home and using their stimulus checks to open up Robinhood accounts and all that. I mean, the liquidities are at historic levels. So it's definitely a really good time to size up, take advantage of that increase in liquidity, and definitely just take advantage of the volatility. That's what I've been doing the last couple of months. I mean, I've had my best months of all time the last couple of months. I'm on pace for my best month of all time this month again on top of that. So that's 4 straight months where I'm posting like new personal bests. So with respect to your question, am I pushing my lips? I feel like the results speak for itself. Again, it's a byproduct partially because of the market conditions and the increase in liquidity. But you know what? I'm not going to complain, right? There's an opportunity. I'm going to take advantage of it.
Absolutely. I think that's real smart. I come from a family of teachers, so I'm also a lifelong learner. I really couldn't agree with you anymore on that. I'm always trying to learn until the day you're 6 feet under. So that's awesome, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, viewers, join us next time for A Trader's Journey.
Awesome.